So, Trev, let's move over to the defense and run through these keys here because obviously, in a lot of ways, it's just keep doing what you're doing, right? I mean, be aggressive, be smart, be sound, get after them. All those type of things those things are all true here. But there's some specific stuff that's important to Army that we're going to talk about. And the biggest thing is you've got to dominate up the middle. And there's the threat of being dominated up the middle in this game because this is a big interior offensive line up the middle. They're going to run right at you. They're going to get low. They're going to get under your pads. I worry about guys getting kind of just getting up under their, getting in their thighs, getting in their chests and driving them off the ball. I can't tell you how many times I've seen a defensive tackle for the other team just get driven 6-7 yards off the ball and then planted as they're just running dive right behind it. I mean, it's just, it just this kind of root hog underneath there, man, and just drive you off the ball. You can't. Not only can you not allow that to happen, you've got to dominate them up the middle with physicality and toughness and great technique. This is a game where Al Washington is going to earn a pay raise or not. You know what I mean? By how he has these guys prepared for the low, because they're not cut blocks. They just get low and get up underneath you and force you to get your hands down. And then guys that don't do it correctly kind of get driven off, and then somebody else is smashing you on the side, and then that's how they kind of get you driven off. And so you're going to have to be great up the middle, and that includes the defensive line, that includes the linebackers, because Army's offense is built around being dominant between the tackles.
Yep.
I mean, that's what they do. They are a quarterback running, fullback running offensive line that wants to do. If they can go for 400 yards on you and never get the ball outside the tackles, they will be perfectly fine with that. Now, they will do things outside the tackles, no question, but this is the heart of who they are. You've got to dominate up the middle against this offense, and that's going to lead to these next couple things that we're going to talk about, Trev. But that's a big part of it.
Yeah, and dominate up the middle. I'll take it a step further. It goes also just beyond the interior defensive tackles as well. The interior linebackers are going to have to do a really good job filling run lanes. Most times it's going to be multiple hats in the same rush lane as well, because they just, Army does such a good job of what we've said all week. Their whole game plan is to just run right at you, So it's going to have to be a situation where in that middle lane, right, typically in between the tackles, Notre Dame's defense is going to have to do a job at the defensive line level of being the aggressor, setting the tone on the defensive line, making sure that they're getting penetration early, and the linebackers are going to have to do a good job filling, because there are going to be instances where the D-line is just going to have to eat some blocks and let the linebackers come in and fill. So everything in between the tackles is going to have to be on point on Saturday.
That kind of leads to kind of part two, Trev, which is early down success is so huge for them. And this is not a team that's they're going to grind you out. And they are a team that kind of wears you out, and the one mistake up the middle and they're going for 20, they're going for 30. I mean, this is a team that goes for a lot of big plays. They are a big play offense. That's what they want to be. And it's all built around the run game and then setting up some opportunities in the pass game. They're not a team that wants to throw the ball a whole lot. That's what makes them very different than Navy. But they're a big play offense. And when you look at what they've done in recent games, they have not been as successful ripping off big gains early. Last couple games against Air Force. Now, that was partly – the Air Force thing was twofold. Number one is Air Force sees that triple option stuff. They see it all the time. And number two, they didn't have Bryson Daly. Well, North Texas did a pretty decent job of limiting their overall effectiveness in the ground game as well, as far as a big play opportunity. They didn't give up a lot of big plays. They ran for 293 yards, but they went for only 4.6 a carry. That's by far their lowest output of the season. And there's a lot of reasons for that. I mean, you're seeing teams that are kind of getting a read on what they're doing defensively, and read what they're doing offensively. So their defenses are able to create some more negatives. They've been under 300 yards each of their last 3 games. In the first 6 games, they were only under 6 yards per carry once. That was against Rice, and they've been under 5.3 in each of their last 3 games. So they're kind of grinding the ball out, but they haven't been as explosive the last few games. Even before, Bryson Daly went out, it's kind of started in the game where he got hurt against ECU, and that's kind of a big part of it. But the other thing too is teams have kind of got a bit of a read on them a little bit. And what Army has been able to do, Trevor, is just grind those drives together and just run the clock. So even though it hasn't been overly explosive like it has, they've also only given up 3 points in the last 2 games, because even though they're not ripping off the big plays, they're not getting off the field. They're just going on these long sustained drives where they just eat up a ton of clock, and the other team doesn't get a lot of chances to really move the ball. And that's been a big part of their success in recent games too, is just the other team just doesn't get a lot of chances to run the ball or to have plays. And so Notre Dame has got to get them off the field. And the way to do that is to get Army into 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9 opportunities where something outside is coming, most likely something throwing the ball is coming. Those are big things. If you win on 1st and 2nd down against Army, you will win this game. And I don't think that Army can afford to score 14 points and beat Notre Dame like they did against North Texas. And I know North Texas was putting up a lot of points, and I know some people held North Texas to X number of points and yards, and North Texas was averaging 40 points a game, fellas and ladies. If Notre Dame was playing the schedule that North Texas had, they would be scoring way over 40 points a game. You know what I mean? So, like, they're good at that level, and they shut it down. You're not going to beat Notre Dame scoring 14 points, most likely. I mean, unless Notre Dame turns the ball over a ton. You're probably not going to beat them scoring the 20 points they had against Air Force. And if you went back and watched that game, they scored very late in that game to make it 20-3. And so if Notre Dame can get them off the field early or have early down success, then they're going to be able to get off the field and not let them just milk the clock out the way that they had the last couple opponents. And so dominate on 1st down, dominate on 2nd down. And it's not about creating negatives, but if you hold them to 1 yard on 1st down and 1 yard on 2nd down, and all of a sudden it's 3rd and 8, then guess what? You're in a great situation.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to be a big part of this key for Notre Dame. Again, the Air Force game, it was 6-3 at halftime. And then Udo had a 12-yard touchdown run in the early and 3rd quarter and didn't score again until less than 2 minutes going to game. It was 13-3 until less than 2 minutes going to game. That's not going to get it done against Notre Dame. But so that was partly what they did. But Notre Dame has to be even better in those early downs, Trev.
Yeah, it goes back to what I was talking about earlier in the show. Army is not a team that is built to play from behind in any capacity of a football game. They're not built to play behind on the scoreboard. They're not built to play behind from the sticks. And it's not because they're bad. It's just because stylistically, that's how their offense is set up. They are set up to be a very efficient offense. They're set up to get 4-yard chunks at a time and then let the 40-second play clock run down to 6 and then snap the ball again. And then they get another 4 yards and then the 40-second. Like, that's what they did to North Texas. That is exactly what they did to North Texas. That's how you hold a team to 6 possessions. And it's because North Texas couldn't win on 1st down. It's because they couldn't win on 2nd down. And in the drives that they did, Army punted. Like, it's just or they caused a turnover. I think Bryson Daly threw his first interception of the season against North Texas, and it was not pretty. Yeah, like, it was not good.
I think it was on 3rd down.
It was on 3rd and 9.
Like 3rd and long, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, and it's because they won on earlier down. So it's very important that they do that against Army.
They scored a touchdown of 48 yards in their first drive, right? And so, again, short field. And so I'd have to go back and watch the game. I watch everything off the All-22, so it's not a full game. Did they try an onside kick? Did North Texas try an onside kick? I think they tried an onside kick or some kind of muff kick because it only went 13 yards.
I think it was something, yeah.
Yeah, and then so 48-yard gain, and then North Texas went 12 plays, 80 yards, turnover on downs. Navy punted after 14 plays. Then North Texas turned it over on downs again, and then Navy had a drive that ended the half. They were up 7-3. And then their first possession of 3rd quarter was a punt, or it was the interception on it was the 2nd and 4. Actually, I thought it was a longer situation than that. And then they had 1 touchdown drive after that. So, like, you look at them, their first 4 possessions, they got 1 touchdown. Like, if Notre Dame can hold them to 1 touchdown and that's it in their first 4 possessions, this is probably going to be a strong win for Notre Dame. You know what I mean? And Navy actually fumbled the ball twice that game. Or, excuse me, Army turned it over twice that game. So they've only turned it over 3 times on the season. 2 of them came against North Texas.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a very interesting aspect of it too, Trev, is they haven't turned the ball over a whole lot this year, but they did last week.
That's I mean, that's the thing that Army is always going to have in their back pocket. They're good enough to where if the game plan isn't being executed the way that they need it to, they can just go into turtle shell mode and just grind out 4 yards at a time and just run the clock out. That's why the final score is 14-3. North Texas was moving the ball up and down the field. They just couldn't finish. They couldn't finish in the red zone. So
because they couldn't run.
Right.
Yeah. Right. Last one, Trev, last key to victory for us in the defense. Last 2, and they kind of go together but the first one is you got to drill the quarterback. You got to hit Bryson Daly early and often. And this isn't about a guy that's injured and you want to bang him up more. It has nothing to do with that. If he was 100% fresh and hadn't taken a hit all year, it'd be the same thing. If you can hit him over and over and over and over again, you're going to have success in them because he is a big part of their offense. And if you have a plan to hit him on every play, then there's a pretty decent chance that, guess what? You're going to have a lot of tackles for minimal gains in this game. And if he's then giving the ball up more, then you're taking the ball out of the hands of their best playmaker. Like, that's the reality. You got to drill Bryson Daly from start to finish because he is their offense. It's no different than saying if you're playing the Steelers with Jerome Bettis, you got to have a plan to get to Jerome Bettis and hit him every play and gang tackle him and not let him get rolling downhill. Same thing here with this kid. You've got to hit him early because once he gets going downhill, and you talked about it, he's kind of like a fullback in how he's built, Trev, and how they're using him. He's kind of like a downhill, like an athletic fullback. Yeah. And if you let him get going downhill, he's going to pick up 4, 5, 6 yards, run over a safety, and then get 20. That kind of thing. And so you got to drill him early and often, but it has to be done within discipline. And that's key number 4. You have to be disciplined, right? Hit the quarterback early and often within the framework of what your game plan is, because this is the type of team, if you try to play hero ball, if you miss a gap, it turns into a big play. And that's really going to be a huge part of this game. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you hit the nail on the head with, hat on a hat when it comes to Bryson Daly. I understand he's a quarterback. That guy's built differently. He is. For frame of reference, Jadarian Price is 5'10", 203. Bryson Daly is 6'2", 221. Bryson Daly is built like a running back. He reminds me a lot of like Peyton Hillis. It's a second Browns reference in this podcast. For what reason, I don't know. But he's very solidly built. He played for the Broncos too, baby. He did. And okay, there we go. Broncos reference too. Look at us. So you got to make sure that you open field tackling has to be good, which goes into discipline. I agree. It's for Notre Dame's defense, looking at him as a whole, it's not going to be one of those games where we just kind of, the takeaway is going to be like another day at the office. Like they're going to have to bring the wood on Saturday, man. This is a hard hitting Army team, and they're going to have to make sure that they limit big plays. And the way that you do that is you get a hat on a hat when it comes to Bryson Daly, and you have to be disciplined. If it's a game about athletes, Notre Dame wins big. If it's a game about just grit and grinding out yards, that's not really what Notre Dame wants to be. And that's what they need to do in this game. So that's the defensive keys, Trev, to victory for Notre Dame. Folks, before we get to the prediction show, do us a favor. See that thumbs up down there. Hit that like button for us. We would greatly, greatly appreciate that. And if you're listening via YouTube, that's great. If you're watching live now, you can also get all of our shows segmented. We break all the shows up into smaller segments. So if you're someone who doesn't like a 2-hour show, that's fine. We break those up into segments and we put them on our podcast app, or on our podcast, which you can listen to on whatever app or platform that you use. Just type in Irish Breakdown. You'll find that. And when you get there, give us a 5-star review. We greatly appreciate that.